Yeah, hi there. I thought I'd just, how to put it, mention that it's been almost, I can't believe this, my very first album, Concepts Volume 1, which was started in the late 70s, is nearly 50 years old. Oh boy. So, in a sense, I'm probably going right back to the 70s when I first started out with electronic music and synthesizers. And there's been some incredible improvements since then. But I must admit, some of my favourites was the Roland System 100. I had a couple of extra sound modules with it and the sequencer, and that was featured on this album. And the reason I mention that, I've now released Concepts Volume 4. You might have seen Concepts Volume 3 and 2 up on Spotify and a few other places like that. So that's good news to have these albums out and about. Volume 4 is fairly sophisticated. Again, it's a similar style to these. There is a little bit of sequencer in it, but the instrumentation sounds a lot more authentic. The early instruments, I had a Solina string ensemble type of device, and they had some good strings and some good basic organy sounds, and a flanger and a chorus phaser and stuff like that was available, and a couple of basic synths. I didn't even have the Micro Moog then. That's how far back it goes. And later on I got the Micro Moog for some of the later tracks, and unfortunately some of the tracks they were all on reel-to-reel, and they were made by ping-ponging track over the track because I didn't have the multi-track recording at that stage. The tapes deteriorated and I lost some of those tracks, and they're only surviving on the cassette, which strangely enough the cassettes have outlasted reel-to-reels. But that first album got airplay on the original 5MMM in Adelaide in the early 80s, and I had somebody contact me the other day. They actually remember that being played after about 45 years, which I was quite surprised to get a message from somebody about that. So that was good to know that somebody's actually heard it. And yeah, I sat back in the station afterwards and took a few phone calls from people who are interested in things like that. Because it was released on cassette, it was fairly portable, so I was able to get quite a few copies. I had a few hundred of them made, so I've got no idea where they're gone now. Some were giveaways and some were sold for $1 or whatever. Nowadays, with streaming and live and YouTube, of course, I love YouTube, you can just put music up there and people can enjoy it and listen to it, and you can spread the word around through the various social media. So it's not worth my while trying to come out and perform live. It's just not worth my while. You know, it cost me a fortune to shift all this gear and set it up. You know, I'll be looking at a half a day's work and setting everything up, getting all the connections right, and sometimes you've got to reprogram everything, which is a pain in the neck. And then you've got to hire a venue and tickets, and then you've got to get insurance. Oh boy. And the cost goes up and up and up, and you're having to charge people $20 or $30 a head before you even break even, if anyone even bothers showing up, because that's the way it is with live music. So anyway, I thought I'd explain that. The Concepts Volume 4 album faithfully follows the footsteps of Volumes 1, 2 and 3. It's got that larger than life, epic scenery sort of sound. It's a little bit subdued in some spots. There's one track called Merry Christmas, which is already on YouTube as a video, and it really highlights the sadness and the futility of all the hostilities, the war. We've seen a lot of wars lately. In fact, throughout my entire life, there's been nothing but damn wars, and I'm sick and tired of it. Hatred. And the video clips I got hold of were AI generated, and I asked for them to be made a certain way. And they picture that desperateness and that, and the medical centres and that. And that's what's in that Merry Christmas, anything but a Merry Christmas. And that's actually on this new album that's now been released as a soundtrack. There's another album, track on that album, What's Happened to Peace. Now, that was quite an interesting one. Behind me is this microphone, and I use this keyboard here and the Korg or the Boss vocoder pedal. I had a vocoder in the 70s, a Korg brand. It's quite a good little unit, but it was tricky to use, and the microphone gooseneck was only that high, so you had to sort of hunch over it like the Hunchback of Notre Dame just to get this stupid thing to run. So that features on What's Happened to Peace, and it took a long time and a lot of soundtracks to get that the diction right so that anyone who didn't know what the words were could actually hear what the words are saying, what's happened to piece, and where has all the piece gone. I use different settings and different sound sets, but I have to sing into the microphone, but I have to use headphones so I don't get any feedback. So that's quite an important part of the process, is authenticity and tonality. And the reason I got the vocoder also, I was hoping that it would modify choir music to make it sound more gothic and early, and it sort of does that, but I'm still perfecting that one. I found other programs do a better job at that than what the vocoder does, ironically, so that's quite interesting. So that's where we're heading with this new album, which has just been uploaded. I still have to get the UPC and ICQ numbers. We'll sort it out. There's 9 tracks. It's lots of short tracks and a few longer ones. I did some research, and people are more likely to listen to shorter tracks than long tracks that go for 20 minutes a piece, unless you really want to get into the music, but they will flow quite well. The opening track is called Strident Power, and that was quite an interesting one. I used a pedal board on an organ, and I used basically a first, fifth interval, a bit like a bass guitar player would probably do, and then it dances around a bit. And the closing track, which is Strident Power N, ironically enough, uses that same sequence of notes, but I arranged it slightly differently, and it's got quite a full sound. So with this simple keyboard setup, which is just down here, this controls all the synthesizers and things like that. That controls these 2 synthesizers up here. It also does a virtual pipe organ, and those things are truly amazing. I love the sound of it. The upper keyboard's a new one. It's a Yamaha, and not as versatile as my old Casio. It's a more basic model, but it too has MIDI output. I use that for the upper mandrel on the organ. Plus it's got some very good strings, it's a very good choir effects, and a few synthy sounds on its own right. But it's a bit more difficult to interface that to these sorts of modules because it uses a USB output rather than a 5-pin MIDI output, and that's the only downside with it. I tried a different brand of keyboard. I got it from Derringer's Music, just for a matter of interest, and it didn't quite match my system. The computer wouldn't talk to it, so I couldn't use it for the virtual organ. But it was a lovely keyboard, and it's a bit of a shame that, so I had to return it to the store, and they refunded me for that. I got this one instead, so that's good service, and I'm very grateful for that. So yeah, keep an eye out for this new album, and lots of stuff in it. Now, as far as musical influence goes, it's a fair combination of things. I try to avoid too many slow tracks. There's a little bit of sequence and some nice sizzling synthesizer leads coming from these Roland modules. And as you know, I've been around synthesizers since the 1970s, and I still love the things, and they're very, very versatile. And to me, it's about authenticity of tonality. You can have a synth sound, it sounds like a synth sound, and I don't mind that. But sometimes I like to reproduce a sound as if I'm actually in a real concert hall with real musicians and things like that. And it's harder to reproduce that tone. But I found that the virtual organ from Grand Audio in this particular case really blends in beautifully well. In fact, I spent ages on this other synth module here, the digital one, that Roland one, that to synthesize a sound set called Spanish trumpets. And if you ever heard of those things, they're actually on big cathedral organs in Spain and Madrid, sort of area, and also in Mexico. These big things stick out the front of the organ like huge trumpets, and they are really loud and they're powerful because Spanish music was very militaristic. And they lend themselves well to electronic music because they synthesize quite readily. And you even get the tonality to change up and down as you change the pitch. Not perfect, but it's pretty good. So that's where we are. Concepts Volume 4 out now. And I may make a video on how it was produced, but I think this one's long enough, this video, to keep your whet your appetite onto electronic music. Thank you for viewing.